How's everybody doing?
Good. How are you?
Good, good. Guys enjoying some weather? No sunburns, so we're all right so far.
It's been really nice
little bit.
indoors here for a week.
Indoor, yeah, I know, no doubt.
Hey, Coach, as you go into your second year, what sort of value the first year do you have going into the second year? In other words, you've seen these guys live, not just on tape,
Yeah.
but as real human beings, players competing.
Sure.
What stands out with you going into year two?
I'd say it's a great point. Just being exactly even 1 year from where I was, I don't want to say the pace is slower, but it's obviously very different. I think when you kind of come off where I was last year into the Super Bowl run and then trying to get here and figure everything out, you're trying to figure out the building, you're trying to figure out players, coaches, all of it is just coming at you really fast. And, obviously a lot of it you can't get all done in 1 year. So it's been good to just kind of have a plan of attack from the end of the season to now to really as far as what we need to do, take a good look at the team, evaluate the team from the standpoint of the players, evaluate the coaches, evaluate things in the building that we want to improve on to make it better for the players. So just a lot more kind of, I think, the flow of things have been a lot better.
What sort of feel do you have for the makeup of your team, especially going through the second half of the season?
Sure.
You started to get traction in your system.
Yeah, obviously, we have a tough team. We got guys that want to go out there and work hard. And really, I think one of the coolest things for me was probably during the championship game. So it'd really either be maybe after the season. So the two AFC, NFC championship games, along with the Super Bowl, some of the things that came up in those games from a situational football standpoint is what we're trying to teach, smarter, understanding the game. And there was some great situations that came up in those games that our players then kind of came back to me and, either shot me a text or called or we saw them and just kind of was like, hey, did you see that? If that had gone this way, or just kind of that strategic sort of conversation that we're having with the guys now is totally different than what it was a year ago. And, that's a great start, and once those guys start to look at the game that way from the standpoint of understanding, hey, this is how this play affects the next one, or in this situation we could do this, or this is what that situation would be called, then we can think faster, and when we think faster, then we can actually slow the game down and play, we can play faster. So it's, that was a real positive from the postseason.
When you did that, what were any specific examples of that might have situation that you guys...
Yeah, sure. Obviously a big one, is the AFC Championship game, right? So, again, we try to tell our guys, it's real important that we play smart football, and penalties are a big part of that. And, you have one team that's driving down, and they're getting ready to go, score. And so the defense comes up with a big play, which is obviously a game changer, and you got a penalty on the play. And it just completely swings the momentum the other way. And, that kind of just that mental toughness to be able to play through those peaks and valleys of a game is something that you need at those higher level games. We've been in those before, those situations. The emotional part of the game through the playoffs into the bigger games, it's very difficult, and your team's got to be ready for that. It's not, you got to build it through the course of time, and guys being able to see and understand those situations when they come up. It's a big one. It's a huge play that you'll talk about, but people don't understand the ramifications of what that play really was. Yeah, we just in conversations walking by, or they'll give me a call and I'm like, right there, that's exactly what you talked about. You can't do that. It's going to keep you from winning. So it was just kind of those sort of plays that was pretty cool.
Where do you feel like your team can get better? Go ahead.
As you did your 360-degree evaluation, what was something maybe you were really proud of, and maybe something you were really disappointed about from your own performance that you can kind of carry into this second season?
Yeah, great question. We've done a lot of kind of, looking at everything, me personally, obviously. I would say one of the things I think that I feel comfortable with, that I kind of started the foundation for to build on next year, was just the format of how we do things, because I know that's always a little bit different. And look, there's 32 coaches in this room. Everyone's got their own style. And that's okay, because they all work, once everybody kind of gets on board. And so for me, it was just, it's all about scheduling and rhythm. Everybody likes to be in rhythm. Everybody likes to have a schedule that's, concrete. And so trying to just establish that was really good. And then on top of that, being able to kind of flex it and change it, because that's what the week is for us. Each week is different. So it's trying to establish that underlying consistency with the ability to adjust, whether it's schedule, practice time, travel, whatever it is.
Say hello.
How you doing?
Great,
You're looking good. Looking sharp as always. Yeah, good color. Yeah.
You got the coat on now.
Yeah, I did. Thanks, Coach. But definitely just, trying to keep that consistency underlying with, just a little bit of changes here and there, which is what happens during the week. So I think we kind of got that going in the right direction. For myself, I think, it's always hard initially, and, you guys know I have parents that are teachers, and, a lot of teachers say you don't smile, first-year teachers, you don't smile until Thanksgiving. So, you don't let them see a smile. So probably didn't do enough of that last year. I just think there's a lot coming at you. And, probably the guys on defense saw a little bit more of me because I was in those rooms a little bit more, but just making sure the team, has a good opportunity to kind of just get me not so in front of the room all the time. It's just different. Like when you go up and you're in front of a room, you're in front of 90 guys, 120 guys, and you're trying to command a room, or you're trying to, teach and present from that aspect of it, that's going to have one sort of perception. But just kind of that everyday interaction in the hallways, in the meeting rooms, things like that, you just want more of that time. And I would say what's been different for me from where I was previously was, we kind of have like an upstairs, downstairs setup, and that's kind of foreign to me. We used to be kind of all in one space, which is great, because then you just happen to have those kind of casual bump-ins where we just, it's not as much. So I got to do a better job of that. It's a long answer, but
You say like you think your team is going to see the real Matt Patricia this year? I don't mean it's it's a phony thing, but
Yeah,
more yourself.
I just think there'll be a lot more familiarity with me, and me with them, and just from a standpoint of like, maybe everything just won't be such a shock. I guess maybe.
I was going to sort of touch on what Justin was asking. Is there a blind spot that you had? What was your biggest blind
Sure.
spot, I guess? And how
Yeah.
do you go about correcting that?
You know what? You have a lot of them. Yeah, you have a lot of them, to be honest with you, when you go into a building, because there's some things that, you're used to, and then things that just kind of show up, and you're like, all right, this is a little bit different here. The building is definitely one. Just you wouldn't think structurally that would make a difference, but it definitely does, from that aspect of it. I would say just in, traffic patterns, how people move through the building, things like that, you're always trying to evaluate.
Football related to that, because again, you've been coaching for a long time, but it's different being a head coach.
Sure.
Anything just with that job responsibilities that
I don't know if it was necessarily a blind spot or just, the reality of how much time goes into everything, and how much I've had a lot of coaching friends and a lot of people, and even guys on my staff that, for a head coach, some of the most difficult conversations or things that can kind of throw you off are, hey, coach, you got a minute? And it's like, yes, but is this really a minute? Because if it's 20 minutes, I'm in trouble. You know what I mean? It's just kind of those situations you're trying to evaluate, but everybody has something they want to say and something that's really important as far as that's concerned, and you want to answer everybody's questions. So it's trying to balance that. It's a little bit, difficult at times.
What do you think you've added in free agency now with the guys that you've gotten? Obviously, with Trey Flowers and the guys some of them,
Yeah.
some better than others. How do you feel like what you've been done in the first 2 weeks in free agency?
Yeah, you know what? Obviously, we're trying to bring in some guys that we think can help our football team. I certainly think that free agency gets a lot of notoriety, and it's great. I think we have some, great additions, that we brought in here to help us. Even, Sean Melvin, Cooper, Abushi, Tommy Lee. I mean, there's a lot of names that we're adding in right now, and I think all of it is just to try to make the team better. I don't think any of it just kind of makes the team arrive. I think we build on the guys that we brought in last year. I think we build on our young players. I think we build on our veterans, and we just continually try to improve. So I think, we're trying to do things the right way. We're trying to work in a direction where guys are familiar with, a high standard of football and what it takes to get to that level, and players that understand what hard work is, and they can dive right into our guys that work really hard, and we can just kind of keep building from there. So from that aspect of it, it's been, it's been fun.
Go ahead, Tim. Go ahead.
Good.
guy particularly with Jesse, obviously
Yeah.
in Pittsburgh, that was a situation. They had so many skilled position guys. Is it an opportunity here where you think he can do more as in the passing game?
Yeah.
Just because of maybe for opportunity?
Yeah, great question. The great thing about him and what's interesting, you think about it, he's a Western PA kid. He's a, Pennsylvania kid, played at Pittsburgh. So in order to get a guy out of Pennsylvania like that, it was a really good win for us from that standpoint. And someone that, he's a young guy. He's a young player, works really hard. He's tough. I've played against him for a lot of years. Love his grit, love his grind, love the way he just kind of attacks the game. And so we know that he can do things in the run game. And, the beauty about it is he's a big target. This guy has a big catch radius. He's long, and he can catch the ball. So, being able to use him in some of those situations, guys with big catch radiuses are always attractive to us. And, we like to have those guys around. So, we're excited about that possibility. I know you had one.
Yeah, how big was it for you to bring in guys, so many guys you know from New England, and know that culture? And
Sure.
the culture you're trying to instill in Detroit. I know there was some issues last year with guys buying in at times. How big was it for you to bring in guys that they like to work hard?
Yeah, I think, we tried to do the same thing last year with the guys we brought in with Kennard and those guys and build on the guys that, are on the team that have that same work ethic. So, as far as last year, it kind of, everyone's just kind of getting in the groove. This year it's been great. There's a lot of guys that I have familiarity with. One guy really coming from the Patriots. The rest of everybody's, Justin really matured at Seattle, did a great job there. Jesse, obviously, we just talked about at Pittsburgh. Great culture, great work ethic, things like that. Danny's unbelievable. I've known him forever, but he was like that when he was with the Rams. So, just guys that we identify in the league. Like I said, Abushi's another really tough guy. Now, this guy's, he's tough, he's gritty, he grinds it out. And the corners, Melvin, coming from, Indy to Oakland, was with me a little bit. So there's obviously some carryover with some of those guys, just knowing me a little bit, but really just trying to add good, solid football players to our team and try to identify the guys that we think can help us.
Follow up on the Jesse James question a little bit. When you're looking at that position going, are you looking for, we need to get an inline guy, we need a Y?
Sure. Yeah, there's a lot of pieces to that position now in our game. Whether you want to call them, on the ball, off the ball, move guys, however you want to do it. There's a lot of need for those types of tight ends, all variations of them. I would say Jesse in general has a multiple skill set. He can do a lot of things, and he's smart, so he can line up in a lot of different positions. So again, building on that smart, tough culture, fundamentals, things that he does well, it's kind of a good fit. And then, like we tell all of our guys, your role will be what you make it. You'll have a great opportunity to come in. That's why competition is so important to us all the way through from the spring to training camp. More so than scheme, it's about competition. It's about finding out what they do well so that when we really dive into the scheme part of it, we can fit their skill set into a scheme. It doesn't really matter what the scheme is, but what we do need to know is what do they do well, and how can they help us win. That's the most important part. And we got to use those, 13 days in the spring, whatever it is, the, training camp days that we have before we get to preseason games and then through preseason games to really identify that before we start to build through the season. That's kind of how the process works.
What about that second tight end you signed? Logan, kid used to be a quarterback.
Yeah.
What do you see in
Yeah,
him?
great example of another guy that's an outstanding player, tough guy. We played at Buffalo, played for a guy, Brian Dable, who I had worked with before. So kind of that same mentality of just a gritty, grinded out kid. Loves the game.
Pretty athletic, too.
Yeah,
though.
extremely athletic. He can throw a little bit too, so you never know when one of those plays are going to come up. But just a guy that really can do a lot of things. Wants to win. Had a great meeting with him. Loves everything that we're trying to do. So I'm excited about him. He's a tough guy.
Kyle just referenced the buy-in. I just kind of put a bow on it.
Sure.
Do you think you got enough buy-in last year? How do you sort of reflect on that?
Yeah, the
How it came along?
yeah, it's a good question. I think the buy-in's always like a tricky conversation. I'm not really sure. It's everybody buys in when you win, so it's easy. But do you know if they're really buying in, or are they just kind of riding the train of winning? I think this is where we find out more so than buy-in. It's about, okay, who are the guys that want to work hard? Who are the guys that want to do it the right way? Who are the guys that are trying to help us build long-standing success? Who are the guys that want to study the game, work hard at it? There's just a different level of work ethic that some of the guys have that are going to come in and that we're developing, of the fine line of what the NFL really is. It may be an hour extra here, or just a little bit of a conversation here between players, or being a little bit smarter in these situations. So it's really about that more than the buy-in factor. It's about just the right types of guys that you put together as a team. It doesn't mean that anybody's not a good player or a bad person. It's just how you put your team together to build the best team. Because as we all know, it's the best team that wins. It's not necessarily the most talented team. So we're trying to find the best team.
Pointing to that is maybe a reason, for what percent of your roster do you think
Sure.
is that type of player that you want last year?
Yeah, it's a good question. I would say we're just kind of in the forward mode right now from that standpoint. So not really going back to evaluate anything specifically from. Well, I think it'll always be better. Even the guys we have, I'll be better. So we just got to start there. Like I'm going to be a better teacher and a better coach. So hopefully the players are, that we'll all improve. I think that's the biggest part of it from that standpoint. And I think again, it's, the philosophy of how we look at the game and the way I look at it, it's, again, I think the Rams had a better record than the Patriots, but would surely trade spots with where everybody finished in a heartbeat. So it's not about the record; it's about the team. And it's about winning and getting up to that level where you can compete with the upper echelon, and that's what we're trying to push towards. So a game here or there, we can all point to a play, a particular situation that if it had gone the other way, the record may change by 2 or 3 games, but it doesn't really solve a problem. And the problem, is or what the goal is what we're trying to accomplish is to build, a really foundationally strong team that then we can build on top of that to be, a great team.
When you came in, did you find that you had to have the work ethic of your guys overhauled a little bit? I mean, was that something you had to work on?
No, I would say just, our guys work hard. They really do, and they like to work at the game. Just may have been different from a standpoint of, we're doing this day or that the next day, and sometimes that rhythm just takes a little bit to get used to. Andy, how you doing?